In a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of a city without major disturbances, a 4-year-old boy began to exhibit behavior that no one in his family expected. It all started one ordinary afternoon. With a partially cloudy sky and the smell of damp earth after a light drizzle, his mother watched him from the courtyard doorway while he played with a small ball. Outwardly, it was a normal day. However, something in the child's behavior suddenly changed. He stopped dead in his tracks, set the ball aside, and raised his gaze to a fixed point in the sky, as if something that no one else could see had just appeared there. That moment, so simple and so easy to overlook, became the first sign of the mystery. The mother, accustomed to the distractions typical of his age, initially saw nothing strange. However, the boy remained motionless for too long to be mere curiosity. Body tense, eyelids slightly parted, and a concentration that did not match the spontaneity with which he usually observed things. He seemed to recognize that point in the sky, even though nothing visible was there. That prolonged stillness aroused a slight unease in the mother, the kind of hard-to-explain sensation that arises when something does not quite fit. The next day, it happened again. At roughly the same time, the child went out to the courtyard and repeated exactly the same gesture. The same posture, gaze directed precisely in the same direction. He was not looking for clouds with shapes, nor following the flight of a bird. His behavior had a precision that was becoming impossible to ignore. His arm rose slightly, as if trying to point to a reference that only he perceived. The mother, from the window, understood that it was not a casual gesture. Behind that motionless posture lay a clear intention. As the days passed, this routine became constant. Every afternoon, regardless of whether the sky was clear or overcast, the child pointed toward the same sector of the firmament. Not a single day missed. Sometimes he remained like that for a minute, sometimes 3 or 4. He did not seem excited or anxious. He did not smile and showed no fear. He simply observed, with the calm and assurance of someone checking something he already knows. That attitude bewildered the parents, because they found no logical explanation for such specific behavior in such a young child. The mother then decided to observe more closely. She noticed that the child raised his arm to an exact height and made a gentle wrist movement, as if following a trajectory invisible to the naked eye. Not a single degree of deviation from day to day. The precision was so marked that it seemed like a learned habit, although no one had taught him anything similar. That constancy began to generate growing concern in the family, not because the child appeared distressed, but because he was responding to an invisible stimulus. The second sign came unexpectedly, when the mother was reviewing the drawings the child made in his room. Among sheets with common figures, she found several pages filled with lines completely different from those he usually produced. Instead of houses or animals, slanted lines and soft curves that repeated almost identically on each page. On several of them appeared an elongated, slightly curved figure, drawn with surprising consistency for a child who barely mastered basic strokes. At first glance, it could have seemed just another scribble. However, the exact repetition of the shape caught the mother's attention. It was evident that the child was not drawing randomly. Each line showed clear intention. The mother then felt a deeper unease, as if those figures represented movement, a route, or a displacement. And most disturbingly, they approximately matched the angle of the sky the child pointed to every afternoon. The father, upon seeing the drawings, tried to find a logical explanation. However, even he acknowledged that the shapes seemed too structured for mere child's play. On some strokes, the child had marked a kind of line variation, a more pronounced curve that always appeared in the same place. Although neither said it aloud, both felt that those drawings fitted disturbingly with the child's routine when looking at the sky. The strong revelation occurred when the mother, casually, opened a digital article about interstellar objects. While browsing related images, she came across a graph showing the trajectory of 3I Atlas, the object that at the time had sparked debate in the scientific community. The child, who was beside her, interrupted his play and suddenly looked at the screen attentively. He did not seem surprised. He did not act like someone seeing something new. His reaction was that of someone recognizing a familiar shape. His posture changed completely. He moved closer to the screen, raised his hand, and placed his finger exactly on the section where the object's trajectory changed direction. It was the same section where he always stopped his arm when looking at the sky. The mother immediately felt a shiver. The coincidence was too precise. What the child pointed to at dusk matched the specific point on the graph, showing anomalies in the interstellar object's trajectory. The father, analyzing the image, noted that some scientists had marked that point as an abnormal brightness variation of the object. It was not a simple irregularity. It was a feature that had sparked discussions about whether it truly behaved like a typical comet. The child, without knowing terms or theories, had identified that point without hesitation. The emotional climax occurred a few days later, when the family was walking in an open area where the sky was particularly clear. The child stopped abruptly, adopted the usual posture, and reproduced with his hands the same elongated stroke as in his drawings. Then he pointed to the sky with the same exactness as every afternoon. His gesture conveyed absolute conviction. For him, it was not just a bright object passing among stars. It was something different, something with intention. In the following weeks, the parents gathered information, reviewed graphs, and compared data. Although they found no concrete explanation, they discovered that the coincidences between the child's gestures and the real variations of 3-eye atlas were too numerous to ignore. The child never presented the phenomenon as play or fantasy, nor did he try to impress. He simply acted with the certainty of someone recognizing a known pattern. Over time, the gestures became less frequent, but all the evidence remained documented. For the parents, the conclusion was disturbing. Everything pointed to their son having perceived something that science still could not interpret, something that from his childlike gaze had never been a comet, but a message. The evident change in the child's routine led the parents to observe him even more closely in the following weeks. He not only repeated the posture when looking at the sky, but also seemed to anticipate specific moments when his concentration increased. The mother noticed that on certain days, the child became restless from the afternoon, as if he knew something was about to appear in the firmament. He walked around the house with short, quick steps, looked out the window repeatedly, and went out to the courtyard just before sunset. It was neither a whim nor a spontaneous impulse. It seemed like behavior guided by an internal clock that no one else could perceive. The mother began keeping a record. She noted the exact time the child went out to the courtyard, the position in the sky he pointed to, and the duration of his attention on that point. Reviewing the first entries, she discovered that the schedule repeated with a minimal variation of a few minutes. That unsettled her. The child could not read clocks. He did not understand fixed schedules. Yet every afternoon, he behaved as if responding to a perfectly regular external pattern. The father decided to get more actively involved. He installed an astronomical observation app on his phone and began recording the exact position in the sky the child pointed to each afternoon. In the first days, the directions seemed to coincide with areas where there were scarcely bright stars. However, after a week, the father detected something more precise. The angle chosen by the child matched the approximate trajectory of the object 3-eye atlas during its passage through the night sky in previous months. That discovery had an immediate impact on the family. They did not understand how a 4-year-old could so consistently point to a trajectory that had been visible only for a short period, and that, moreover, went unnoticed by most adults not passionate about astronomy. The father felt a mixture of disbelief and concern. The mother, confirming the coincidence a second time, began to suspect that something deeper lay behind each of the child's gestures. The second phase of the phenomenon appeared when the child began linking his drawings to everyday objects. He took small, elongated items, pencils or twigs, and moved them from side to side following the same curve as on his sheets. Sometimes he placed the item on the floor and rotated it, creating a movement that exactly mimicked the slanted line repeated in his strokes. He did not speak, did not seek attention. He simply displayed absolute concentration, as if trying to recreate a behavior he had seen repeatedly and needed to convey with the resources available to him. The mother decided to show the drawings to a kindergarten teacher without revealing the context. The teacher carefully examined the sheets and commented that the pattern seemed too precise for such a young child, especially because the curves repeated the same angle and overall length. She pointed out that such structural consistency was unusual and that, while some children draw repetitive shapes, they rarely maintain such stable structure. That observation further heightened the mother's doubts. The most important revelation in this block occurred when the child, without prior warning, began reproducing a rhythmic pattern with gentle taps on a table. It was not a childish rhythm. It did not follow known melodies nor match songs he might have learned. The taps had exact intervals, repeated identically each time. The father recorded one of those episodes for later review. Listening to the audio with headphones, he noticed that the intervals followed a precise sequence, almost like a code. Intrigued, the father marked the times on a sheet. Each tap was separated by nearly identical pauses, except at 3 moments where the pause increased slightly. Comparing the sound notes with the brightness variations recorded in studies on 3-eye atlas, the father found disturbing similarities. The anomalies described by astronomers, those small alterations in the object's brightness, matched in number the rhythm changes the child made on the table. The mother felt a chill when the father showed her. It could no longer be a simple coincidence. The connection was too direct. The child, without access to scientific information, was reproducing a pattern that matched real recorded astronomical observations. The discovery left them silent for several minutes. Both understood they were facing something far beyond any childish imagination. From that moment, the parents decided to study the recorded variations of the object in greater detail. They reviewed scientific articles, lectures, and interviews with specialists. They discovered that some astronomers had suggested the possibility that certain variations could not be explained by simple natural phenomena. These were not official hypotheses, but discussions existed about possible unusual thermal contractions, atypical ejections, or behaviors uncharacteristic of conventional comets. What most caught the parents' attention was that several researchers had used the term message in a completely theoretical sense, as a way to express the strangeness of the light pattern. It was not a literal statement. No real communication was proposed. It was merely a scientific metaphor. However, compared to the child's actions, the word began to acquire new weight. The emotional climax of this block came on a cloudless night. The family was in the courtyard, enjoying the fresh air. The child, playing with a doll, abruptly interrupted his activity. His body tensed. He slowly walked to the center of the courtyard, raised his arm, and pointed to the usual area of the sky. But this time, he did not remain motionless. His arm began moving along a wider curve, as if tracing the complete trajectory from beginning to end. The gestures were precise, fluid, and confident. The mother noticed something new. After reproducing the movement, the child spread his hands and held them fixed, as if indicating an exact distance between 2 invisible points. The posture suggested intention. His eyes had a strange glow, a mixture of deep concentration and absolute certainty. The father felt the air in the courtyard grow heavier. The scene had the intensity of a memory trying to fully resurface. When the child lowered his arms, he returned to his doll as if nothing had happened. The naturalness with which he resumed his activity contrasted overwhelmingly with the tension he had generated in the adults. For them, that gesture was confirmation. The child was not imitating learned behaviors, nor inventing meaningless movements. He was trying to communicate something that, from his childlike perspective, was not a mere astronomical phenomenon. From that moment, the parents began considering the possibility that the child was not remembering a past life, nor repeating heard information. He seemed rather to be responding to a signal. They did not know whether the signal came from the object, from a fragmented memory, or from a perception they could not explain. But it was evident that every gesture, every drawing, and every pattern matched real characteristics of 3-eye atlas. The following days were filled with checks, comparisons, and new observations. The parents realized the child was behaving as if interpreting something they could not see, and each time he pointed to the sky or repeated a pattern, the same idea returned. Perhaps that object had never behaved like an ordinary comet. Perhaps in a way they still did not understand. The child was trying to convey that truth. As weeks passed, the family began noticing that the child's episodes acquired a more complex pattern. It was no longer just pointing to the sky or tracing curved lines with his hands. The little one began reacting to specific environmental sounds, as if certain noises awakened an involuntary recognition in him. Whenever he heard a repetitive hum, from the refrigerator or a machine on the street, his body tensed for a few seconds. Then he imitated the sound's rhythm with his fingers, adjusting it until achieving a sequence resembling the one reproduced weeks earlier on the table. The mother was the first to notice this link. She discovered the child adjusted the rhythms precisely, as if seeking coincidence with a concrete pattern stored in memory. She observed the little one pausing, fine-tuning the sequence with small finger taps, and then returning to normal activity, as if verifying an auditory code only he could interpret. The situation generated a dual feeling in the mother: unease at the behavior's precision and fascination at how the child seemed to understand something escaping everyday logic. The father decided to record several of these episodes. He compared the rhythm reproduced by the child with records of the object 3I Atlas's irregular brightness. He noted the ratio between light intervals and the child's rhythms remained almost identical. The coincidence was no longer just an impression. It was an observable pattern. At certain moments, the child made slightly longer pauses, coinciding with zones where the object experienced abrupt intensity variations. The father, carefully reviewing these coincidences, felt he faced behavior impossible to attribute to chance. The next clue appeared one afternoon when the child was playing on the living room floor, surrounded by building blocks. Spontaneously, he began organizing them according to a specific structure. He built neither tower nor house as usual. This time, he arranged the blocks forming a curved line with a clear inflection point, followed by an exact separation and another smaller curve. The mother, observing the structure, noted it approximately reproduced the same trajectory pattern the child indicated with his hand when looking at the sky. The little one maintained that design for several minutes, moving the blocks with absolute attention, as if the shape had to be correct. Once finished, he walked away without apparent interest, as if the construction had fulfilled a temporary purpose. The father decided to photograph the structure. Later, comparing it to an animation of the object's trajectory, the similarity surprised them again. The overall shape, the place where the child separated two blocks, and the secondary curve matched zones where scientific studies detected unexplained variations in the object's acceleration. This new coincidence led the family to wonder whether the child remembered something related to the object or, in an unknown way, was responding to signals the environment transmitted without their conscious perception. The phenomenon reached a new level when the child began reacting to certain visual stimuli. Whenever he saw an image with points distributed in space, lights of a nighttime city or stars in a photograph, his posture changed. He brought his hand to the image and followed a trajectory not corresponding to visible lines, but to an imaginary route he seemed to know in advance. On one occasion, the mother placed a sheet with a simple constellation on the table. The child looked for a few seconds, then slid his hand diagonally toward an empty area of the paper, indicating a distance not matching any marked star. Comparing that gesture with old astronomical maps, the father discovered the indicated direction coincided with the approximate zone where the object 3I Atlas would have been visible on dates prior to its official discovery. It was a coincidence too precise to ignore. The mother and father exchanged a silent glance, aware that each new datum destroyed the possibility of a simple explanation. The most significant revelation occurred on a particularly cold night. The sky was clear, stars shining intensely. The family decided to go out to the courtyard to observe constellations. The child advanced a few steps and stopped in the center of the garden. Then he raised his arm as he had so many times, but this time added a different gesture. He made small circles with his hand, as if representing a vibration. Then he spread his fingers, separating them a few millimeters while keeping the hand fixed in the air. The posture suggested separation, distance, or distribution of something. The mother immediately felt a shiver. The father understood that gesture had meaning. It represented a sequence, a prior step, a process. The child seemed to show that the object had emitted variations deliberately, distributing information in intervals. That interpretation did not arise from a desire to make sense of what they saw. It emerged from the totality of coincidences accumulated over the recent weeks. The child, with his simple way of expressing himself, repeated patterns matching the object's records and, moreover, suggested intention behind them. The child's reaction after that gesture was even more disconcerting. He remained standing motionless, gaze fixed on a point in the firmament. His breathing slowed, his expression acquiring unusual seriousness for his age. The mother felt she was witnessing something escaping any logical explanation. The father perceived it was not mere visual recognition. It was a response. The child behaved as if receiving or interpreting information. When he finally lowered his arm, the tension dissipated. The child returned to normal activity without signs of fatigue or confusion. That naturalness proved even more disturbing for the parents. For them, it was the emotional climax of the period, a moment when everything recorded fitted together with unexpected weight. drawings, rhythms, gestures, trajectories, and reactions. Each piece formed part of the same pattern. In the following days, the mother decided to discreetly consult a child development specialist. She mentioned neither the interstellar object nor the astronomical coincidences. She spoke only of the gestures, the fixation on a sky point, and the repetitive drawings. The specialist replied that some children develop intense interests at that age, but acknowledged that stroke precision and rhythmic repetitions were less common. He suggested observing the child without excessive intervention and systematically documenting behaviors. The mother returned home with more questions than answers. That same night, she reviewed again the accumulated records, drawings, photographs, videos, and notes. She realized the child had spontaneously marked the same points highlighted in specialized studies. The family could no longer think it was chance or imagination. There was a real, verifiable connection between the child's behavior and the object's characteristics. Most disturbing was the growing sensation that the child was not remembering something from the past, but reacting to something still active, something that, from his childlike gaze, did not have the shape of a comet, had the shape of an ongoing message. As days passed, the family began noticing the child's episodes no longer appeared isolated. All followed a sequence. First recognition gestures, then rhythmic patterns, afterward trajectories reproduced with objects, and finally, series of deep silence moments when the child seemed to enter absolute concentration, as if information presented itself to him in layers, each more complex than the previous. That progression led the parents to understand the phenomenon was reaching a critical point. The mother, who had documented every detail from the start, decided to order all information into a timeline. When finished, she saw the child's behavior coincided with key dates related to the study of the object 3I Atlas. There were patterns matching scientific publications, brightness variation records, and even recent debates among astronomers about the possibility the object showed non-natural behavior on certain trajectory segments. That coincidence did not seem random. The child reacted at moments reflecting the same temporal dynamics experts used to analyze the object. The father, intrigued by the number of synchronicities, decided to conduct an experiment. He displayed on the television screen several different animations of astronomical trajectories, all without names or visible descriptions. He included real and fictional objects, comets, asteroids, and random simulations. The child watched each animation without enthusiasm, showing interest in most. However, when the representation of 3I Atlas appeared, his posture changed immediately. He approached the screen, raised his hand, and followed the trajectory with almost identical precision to that reproduced in his drawings and sky gestures. Then he repeated the circular movement representing vibration and spread his fingers, imitating the sequence shown weeks before. That gesture was the final confirmation for the parents. The child did not react to stars or attractive figures. He reacted to a unique pattern, as if recognizing specific behavior coded in the object's trajectory. It was a clear sign the child was inventing nothing. He was responding to a concrete stimulus, a stimulus appearing only in relation to that interstellar object. The mother advanced the investigation further. She compared her records with detailed graphs of the object's trajectory and spectrum analyses describing slight luminous variations. She found something that left her motionless for several seconds. The pauses the child made when marking rhythms on the table matched, detected brightness variations, but also a regular interval, some experts described as unusual. An interval corresponding to no simple explanation. Most disturbing emerged when the mother detected the child repeated that interval with millimetric exactness, even at times of day unrelated to external stimuli, as if the sequence persisted in his mind as a constant echo. Reviewing multiple times, the conclusion was inevitable. The child reproduced a pattern he had never seen, but that matched behavior only specialists recorded under advanced observation conditions. Then came the definitive episode. On a windless night with a particularly clear sky, the family decided to go out to the courtyard to look at the moon. They were not seeking to provoke a reaction in the child. For the first time in weeks, they wanted simply to enjoy a quiet moment. However, while the parents looked upward, the child advanced 3 steps, raised his arms, and traced a complete sequence of gestures he had never performed so continuously. First, he drew the long, curved trajectory of the object, as always. Then he represented vibration with small circles in the air. Then he spread his fingers, and held his hand fixed for exactly 2 seconds. Finally, he added a new gesture. He slid his hand downward at a precise angle, as if showing the final direction of something descending or moving away. The parents did not initially understand the gesture's meaning, but the child continued the sequence with chilling calm. After tracing the final trajectory, he remained motionless, looking at a sky point. His breathing slowed, his expression becoming even more serious. In those instants, he seemed connected to something adults could not perceive. The father felt he was observing a decisive moment, as if the entire phenomenon had led to that scene, and then the child lowered his arm. He showed neither fatigue, confusion, nor emotion. He simply walked to his mother and rested his head on her leg, as if the episode had been one more action in his routine. But for the parents, it was a point of no return. They understood that final sequence represented more than pattern repetition. It was a complete structure, a compact version of everything the child had tried to express for weeks. The mother, analyzing the descent gesture, found something disturbing. It matched a part of the trajectory theorized by some astronomers, an abrupt, possibly intentional change, suggesting the object did not follow a simple ballistic orbit. It was minimal maneuverability, hard to detect, but present in certain speculative analyses. The child had reproduced that maneuver without knowing anything about it. The father then understood the child did not merely recognize the object, he interpreted it. Each gesture seemed to indicate intention behind the object's behavior, vibrations, trajectories, intervals, as if the child perceived the object not as a physical body, but as a message coded in patterns of light and movement. After that night, the gestures began to fade. The child became calmer, more centered on age-appropriate play. He no longer pointed to the sky as frequently, nor repeated rhythms with the same intensity. The parents interpreted that change as the natural closure of the phenomenon, as if the message's content, or what the child seemed to decipher, had completed its process. The family kept all notes, drawings, photographs, and recordings. Although they never found a concrete explanation, they were convinced the child had responded to a real, observable, and verifiable pattern in the object's studies, a signal that, from a scientific viewpoint, still lacked interpretation. For them, the case remained marked as one of those phenomena that do not fit simple explanations. An episode in which a child without prior knowledge interpreted something many experts were only beginning to consider, something that for him never had the form of a comet, was always a message.